I want you to get ready to take some notes. Seriously, pause this, go grab a pen and paper, and come back with us because today I have Dr. Tara Gunther on the show. Now, she's been on in the past when we spoke about trauma and trauma informed care, but we are going to talk a little bit about belly fat today. And in fact, how you can wave goodbye to belly fat in 2024. I know I like that idea. So let's go ahead and dive in. But first of all, I want to introduce you to Dr. Tara Gunther. Dr. Gunther is a licensed clinical psychologist and a certified health and wellness coach through the Integrative Health Coach certification from the University of Arizona. In addition, she is a certified IF 45 intermittent fasting coach, having studied underneath Cynthia Thurlow, nurse practitioner. In fact, that is how we met. We are both certified in intermittent fasting and her method, IF 45. Tara focused on the study of health psychology in both her master and doctoral degrees in clinical psychology, and later completed programs in physician leadership through Harvard and the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Now, she's worked extensively in the field of primary care, behavioral health integration, and specifically with patients in sleep medicine, gastrointestinal disorders, diabetes, and primary care. And that's what we're going to touch on today. Dr. Gunther currently works with women on their weight loss goals. She uses a very bio-individual approach and brings in the mindfulness mindset component, helping them to develop a better self-image. Dr. Gunther, welcome to the show.
Oh, good. So good to see you again. I'm going to have so much fun working with you on this topic.
I've been excited to dive into this. Intermittent fasting is an interest of mine and interest of Tara Gunther as well. And what we want to talk about is specifically how intermittent fasting can help you reduce belly fat. But first of all, we want to dive into why women nearing 50, I'm going to say it starts in our late 40s. And as we move through that window of menopause, from perimenopause into menopause, we find as women that we start to get a little more fluff around the midsection. And there's various reasons for this. Obviously, there's the hormonal reasons. As estrogen begins to fluctuate, it can be too high and then too low. Those fluctuations of either excess estrogen or not enough estrogen can cause body fat, especially around the midsection. But then what happens is that estrogen goes away and testosterone drops, body fat goes up. So we start to lose muscle, body fat goes up, and we have a tendency, the weight that we do carry, the body fat that we do have, instead of going to the hips where we would rather it go, or the glutes, I know I'd rather mine go there, it goes straight to the lower belly. And then I want to touch a little bit on, Tara, your experience working with patients and finding that there was a commonality between metabolic inflexibility or metabolic problems and then these chronic illnesses they have and the advice that the medical community was giving at the time. Do you want to touch on what was going on?
Sure. And unfortunately, I wouldn't even use past tense. I think it's still happening. But I worked, as you mentioned, for so many years in various medicine clinics, specialty clinics, and the given standard advice, regardless of the condition, was really this idea that we should eat small meals throughout the day, that we should keep the metabolism burning by, the idea of like feeding a fire consistently, right, to keep it burning bright. And it was advice that I adhered to, that I was perpetuating with the clients, because of course, as a health psychologist, I was there to support the physician's goals with the client. And, it breaks my heart to think of all the years I spent in medicine, giving that advice, encouraging clients that was the way to support their body. Yet, as we know, very few people were seeing the results they wanted. I worked specifically in diabetes clinic, which is a whole separate scenario where people are insulin dependent. So they do need to eat differently. And my understanding is that 6 meals a day model came out of diabetic, guidelines, which should not have been sort of transferred to the regular population. And as we can see, that method hasn't worked. And in fact, one of the reasons that intermittent fasting has really drawn me in is it's really looking at how we ancestrally ate and how our bodies were meant to function. And then when you look at this model of exercise more, eat less, if again, if that had worked, we would not be suffering the way we are. And so then when I would see these commonalities, regardless of the clinic I was in, I mean, a lot of the discussion always came back to food and how people were eating and how they were feeling. And many of the chronic conditions overlapped with metabolic dysfunction. And then of course, it could even be complicated by the medications they were on and how that in itself was creating more insulin resistance. I mean, we could spend hours on this topic. I don't know if that answered your question, but when I found intermittent fasting, I thought, I wish I could dial back time and have given this amazing tool. And it's free to so many clients that would have benefited.
Oh, absolutely. It is interesting to note that that advice is still out there to eat these small mini meals throughout the day, like every couple of hours to so-called stoke and fire up the metabolism. And having come from the bodybuilding community, that's my background, that was our philosophy all the way through, was to eat every couple of hours. And it wasn't so much of a problem when our carbohydrate intake was low. I would notice that wasn't the issue. It was when I was in that off season and it was like, okay, let's eat a cup of rice every 2 hours. And I would eat 6 to 7 meals per day. So you can imagine it was like 6 cups of rice by the end of the day, white rice. And I realize now that I was doing some damage to my metabolism, even though it wasn't maybe showing outwardly. Inwardly, I could not go 2 hours without that jittery,
Right.
shaky. I mean, I wanted to snap somebody's head off if I couldn't eat within 2 hours. And the first time I fasted 12 hours, I thought, oh my gosh, I am gonna, gonna feel over. I felt sweaty, nauseous. It just breaking that pattern. I didn't realize what it was doing to blood sugar levels.
Well, and that perpetuates the issue because then people feel that shaky feeling. I remember that feeling. And so then it just reinforces this belief that we need to eat every couple of hours. And what we don't realize is that we're metabolically broken. But that's not the way we should feel, after a few hours. If that were the case, we would have died off as a species long ago. Or think about animals in the wild.
Right.
If they had to wait, if they had to eat every few hours and they didn't have the energy to go get food, get their prey, they wouldn't survive either. And so, I mean, that brings up a really interesting point that it really also drives, I think, this primal, and again, this predates, of course, modern times where we have food availability 24/7. But I see a real stark fear of being hungry. And again, I think some of that's normal, but in today's world of food availability for most of us, it's not a real concern, but people are truly afraid of being hungry. And intermittent fasting scares them. This idea
Yes.
of time restricted eating scares them.
You're right about that because I posted some things on social media about intermittent fasting, and often I'll get some private messages saying, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. They're afraid that their blood sugar is going to drop too much. They're afraid of that feeling of hunger, and some feeling of hunger. It's normal. We're supposed to be a little bit hungry by the time we get to that next meal, and by the time we break that fast. So I agree with you there. Now I'm going to circle back around to the belly fat because I know that is such a concern for women, and talk a little bit about the visceral. So for the listeners, for those viewing this video, the visceral is going to be that dangerous body fat that surrounds, say, the liver and the organs, whereas the pinch and inch is that annoying, like you've got your yoga pants on and it wants to the little love handles that hang out over the side. And the pinch and inch isn't dangerous. The visceral, on the other hand, is. So, yes, belly fat is annoying, but it can also be dangerous. And as women, as we transition through menopause, we are more likely, once again, to store that fat in the midsection. And it's more likely to be the dangerous visceral body fat. So this is where intermittent fasting can help, and it can help in three different ways. So I first want to touch on the metabolic flexibility. Dr. Gunther, do you want to explain that a little bit, the metabolic flexibility and what it means to be metabolically healthy?
Sure. And feel free to jump in with your expertise as well. But metabolic flexibility is really that ability for our body to burn, and you may want to give the science behind this a little bit, but to be able to fluctuate between the energy that we are provided through the food we're immediately eating, and then when we tap through all of that, it can go into our stored body fat for fuel. And the process obviously is more complicated than that, but it's this seamless ability for your body to move back and forth, so that you should, what I explain to clients is that, going back to that point of that jittery feeling, that is a sign of being metabolically broken. What is more, or what should be the case, is that we eat a meal and maybe we feel a little sluggish right after that when our body goes into digestion, but then the energy level should even out, and we feel fine until our next meal. And so we aren't having those ups and downs. It's a little sluggish after eating, and then energy returns to normal, because then the body is seamlessly going, oh, I've got lots of fuel, in storage to tap into. So it's ability to go back and forth. And that is, people have called it, or some have said that when you are adapted, you are fat adapted, meaning your body can easily adapt and kind of grab into your fat stores for fuel. And if you're sugar burning, your body and our body likes to be efficient and a little bit lazy. So if you're constantly giving it energy, immediate resources, it's just going to rely on that immediate resource, like the 2-hour rice dose, right? It's going to prefer that you just keep giving it quick energy. Yeah. Then, kind of the harder work of tapping into its own resources. But do you want to give maybe a little more science behind that? I don't know if that was.
No, that was a beautiful explanation. I actually ran across, I wouldn't say it's a sciencey explanation, but I ran across this on the Levels website. And Levels is a company that they work with the CGMs. They've done a lot of research, and they have a blog. Listeners might want to check that out. It's Levels is the company. And I found this explanation. I'm just going to scroll through my notes a moment on the types of fuel. Just like Dr. Gunther was saying, we have fat, and we have carbohydrates, and we have stored carbohydrates, and your body should be able to toggle the switch and reach for these different sources instead of just for the carbohydrates, just for the glucose, just for the sugar. That's called being a sugar burner. And a lot of times that is associated with that wider waistline and more belly fat. So, as she mentioned, we need to tap more into the stored fat, and our bodies really don't want to do that. So if you can think of your body, here it is in my notes, I just scroll through. If your body is a fuel tank, and this just gave such a beautiful picture. At the very top of that tank is that glucose, that blood sugar, that bowl of rice that you just ate, and it's circulating in your blood, and it's ready to go. And because our bodies want to take the easy, lazy route, it's going to reach for that sugar first. Then in the middle is the glycogen. That is the stored glucose in your liver and in your muscles. So whatever's been left over from a meal that your body didn't need is stored in the liver, stored in the muscle for future use. And then finally, at the very bottom, the hardest to get to is that stored fat. So if you can think of those three levels, and if you are continually eating the bowl of rice like I was, or whatever it is, the crackers, pretzels, every couple of hours, then what you're going to find is that your body is just reaching for that fuel source. And not so much a scientific explanation, but I know that really put it in perspective for me.
Oh, Carol, I just have to give you how you just fleshed out an analogy I use. I have a different way of saying it now. I would just tell clients, so it's like going to the grocery store, right? When we go to the grocery store, we put all of the fresh stuff into the fridge, and then the things that we might want to use later, we put into the freezer. But if we are constantly packing the fridge, we never get to the stuff in the deep freeze. And I'm like, well, now I'm going to have to say there's three levels. It's the fridge, the drawer in my refrigerator that's still on the main level of the house, and then the deep freezer that's literally in the basement. That's the hardest to get to, the one that, right? So like there's the three layers, but it's true. Our body is going to rely on the refrigerator source, right? If it can.
Yes, I love that analogy of the refrigerator and the freezer because it's so you can just visually see it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we have to start to understand, which actually happening with our food and our bodies and with the blood glucose. So with intermittent fasting, and I want to define intermittent fasting first because there is a difference from straight on fasting to intermittent fasting. And I think this is where some of the fear comes in because I'll talk about intermittent fasting and women will assume that I'm talking about going 3 days without eating. And that's really not. Intermittent fasting is really just having a feeding window. And that's really all it is. Did you want to add to that, Tara?
No, I think you're right. There's a lot of confusion and a lot of terminology that can get thrown out into the world, and intermittent fasting has become such a popular term, but it really does mean time restricted eating. It really means having an open window in which you eat and a closed window in time in which you're fasting, which is typically overnight for most people, and then we begin to tweak those hours, and it's really not more complicated than that.
It's not. I mean, in the beginning my fast was 10 hours because I was so accustomed to eating like right before bed and then getting up first thing in the morning, like, okay, got to eat before I go to the gym and getting in a full on meal. And so in the beginning, it was 10 hours and then it was 11 and it was 12. And generally for me, I don't go past 16 because I need an 8-hour window to get all my protein, my meals in. Which brings us to a couple of other points that I think are really important here. So obviously intermittent fasting is going to help with that blood glucose because you're not spiking it every couple of hours. But it's also going to help with, and this plays right into it, our hormone insulin. So when we eat a meal, this is normal. Insulin is supposed to do that. It's released. It comes in to shuttle that excess blood glucose, blood sugar into the cells, store it in the liver, store it in the muscles for later so that we can access that energy later. But if we're sounding the insulin alarm every couple of hours with snacking, and I had read where Americans snack on average 9 to 11 times per day. I don't know how accurate that number is, but that's the number I had heard. Insulin is continually pouring in, and after a while, our bodies get numb to it. It ceases to recognize the hormone, which means insulin's pouring in, but it's not able to clean up the mess. It's not able to mop up the mess anymore. And it's important to realize that high insulin levels, we are going to be storing fat. So insulin, it really is a fat storage hormone in a sense. I don't want to oversimplify it. But if we're releasing insulin, we're not burning fat, we're storing fat. Did you want to add to that, Tara?
No, I think you said it perfectly. I mean, it's really insulin is the key to fat storage. It's like what unlocks the door, and it's important at times that we keep that door shut and that we allow our body to be in the other part of the cycle of digestion.
Oh, absolutely. The rest, you bring up the digestion. We need that digestive rest. There's a whole cycle that we go through when we digest. And I'm not going to get into every part of it, but basically if you're eating every couple of hours, you're not giving your body a chance to complete the cycle. So there's the digestive rest. There's so many benefits to intermittent fasting. And then finally, point number 3 was women cannot fast in the same way men do. Men can get away. My husband, I'm pointing off toward the other part of the house. My husband can go all day, run around, do all of this work, and he works physically. We own a plumbing, heating, and air conditioning company, so he's up and down roofs, he's underneath houses, and then at the end of the day, he can have one very large meal. That whole concept of that one meal a day. And women, we need more of a feeding window to get that protein in because it is such an issue for us.
I am so excited to announce that Dr. Tara Gunther and I are going to be running the IF 45 intermittent fasting program in January of 2024. We get started on January 8th. It runs 45 days, about 6 weeks, during which time we're going to be teaching you how to implement intermittent fasting in a safe and effective way as a woman and as a midlife woman, because this is very important. We cannot fast the same way as our husband, our boyfriend, our male friend, or coworker. We need a program that's different, and that's what IF 45 can do for you. In that 45 days, you can expect to lose body fat. You can eliminate excess belly fat, especially the visceral fat around the midsection, and you can balance your blood glucose, blood sugar levels. This is very important for overall metabolic health and for the prevention of chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. To learn more about the program, go to the show notes, click on the link, or you can head to my website, carolcovino.com, go to programs, scroll down to IF45, and from there you can learn more and sign up. If you have questions, feel free to contact me at carol@carolcovino.com. Dr. Gunther is a clinical psychologist, and she's going to be bringing in a mindset, mindfulness component to this. That means you're going to be learning tools and strategies to help you implement the intermittent fasting lifestyle. You're going to get rid of all those limiting self beliefs and mind blocks like emotional eating or boredom eating. She'll be teaching you how to recognize hunger cues and also working on overall self esteem, self confidence, and body image. So, once again, go to the show notes to sign up or my website, carolcovino.com. Hope to see you in IF 45 in January of the new year.
Absolutely. And I think, what you were speaking to when we first jumped on was just that belly fat. And, what the women that I'm working with, it is such a big complaint, and they feel so vulnerable in that space. And
Mm.
unfortunately, a lot of them adopt this idea like well, I'm hitting that age, I just have to accept it. Because they've tried so many diets, they've tried so many things and quote unquote have failed, and they think this is just something we should accept. And actually, they hear it from the providers too. And that's the other heartbreaking part of this is that I don't think that we should settle for that. That we should, find ways to. Well, I guess that's why you and I are here. Is that we want to help women. Our goal is that we want them to understand that there is another way, in a way that is so empowering and creates so much more body intuitiveness when you really learn. And I think that kind of leads into one of the other points we wanted to touch on is the mindset piece. And that's, and I think that's the space that, of course, I was clinically trained first and foremost, and, how to manage our thoughts. And that truly becomes, I think, why I'm so excited to work with you. I feel like we're just bringing all the best of both worlds together, where you have, the true background in fitness and nutrition. I come from that sort of from a side game, but mindset has been, my first and foremost piece. And it's truly when you put the two together, along with women understanding how to listen to their bodies and how to be more intuitive in the intermittent fasting space, it's like the perfect formula. I don't know if that.
Is I'm so glad you talked about the mind piece, the mindfulness, and mindset is one of those terms. It's thrown around a lot, but really, I mean, to boil it down, I think Tara and I, we were talking about this. It's thoughtfulness. It's mindfulness in the sense of awareness. Like you have to be aware of these patterns to change them. And an important piece here is I think there is a mind issue to implementing intermittent fasting or really any nutrition plan that I see. And what I see is that's where women are battling the most. It's the emotional eating, it's the boredom eating, it is the emotional component of food. Do you want to talk about that a moment?
Sure. I mean, I think, it's one thing to understand is that it's such a nurturing aspect of most cultures that we use food for comfort. We think of if we have fond family memories, there's often food associated with that. We're going into the holiday season. Thanksgiving just occurred, and now we're moving into the Christmas season, and of course, food is such a big part of that. So food is nurturing. It's a way that we show love and care, and it's also the piece though that when we are seeking to buffer discomfort, we
Mm-hmm.
often turn towards, right? And it's this piece of like, so we do receive reward, a dopamine, an internal hormonal reward for food. The interesting thing is that there's some studies that are starting to show that we have a higher dopamine response with the thought of the food, sort of like the craving, the desire, than the actual reward we get from actually eating it, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because those cravings can feel so strong and powerful. And so, in any case, so really understanding and learning your cues and how to, I don't know, best, sit with those cravings and that desire and the emotional eating and learn the skills to move beyond. And in truth, the more that we become successful at sitting with cravings, the easier it becomes, right?
Yes. I remember I knew I had worked through a lot of what I needed to work through when I was able to walk into there's a local it's a bakery cafe. They're open all day, but they have it's called Flying Star, and they have all these remarkable, beautiful sweets, cakes,
Mm,
cupcakes, all of the things gluten free. And I'm like, okay, that was always a draw for me because I don't do gluten, but I can walk in now and I can smell all of those smells, and it's not an issue. I'm not fixated on that case thinking, oh, I can't have a
mm,
cookie or whatever. It's really a non issue for me now. And I find that I've moved beyond those. And not that I don't have cravings, I do, I'm human, but I've moved beyond that gnawing,
right.
just, I have to have the thing.
Yes. And you just said a key point, and that is that when a lot of individuals, again, it's that thought work and understanding and having awareness of what they're thinking that's driving the craving or driving the emotional eating. Because if we are in a space of thinking, I can't have that, it immediately triggers that restriction feeling, which again, our brain and body just wants to rebel against, right? When we over restrict, the very thing it wants to do is do the opposite.
Hmm.
If you tell someone not to look in a certain direction, guess what their natural impulse is to do, right? So it is. It's such a powerful driving force. And so here we have, you know, our thought patterns, which most of us. Now I've heard of statistics. We have something like 70,000 thoughts a day. How do they really measure it? I don't know how they actually measure
I
that,
know.
but so many of the thoughts we have are actually hardwired, and we aren't thinking about it. It's just, it happens naturally. If I've picked up this glass a million times in my life, I'm not thinking about actually how to pick it up. It's running beneath the surface. And, unfortunately, our body, our brain likes efficiency. It likes to not think about things. If we had to think about every aspect, we wouldn't function, right? But it doesn't distinguish good thought, bad thought. So sometimes we have these thoughts running beneath the surface, and they're not helpful thoughts, and they're driving the behavior we actually are. And that's what creates the struggle, where people feel like they're struggling so much with these behaviors. Um, and it really feels defeating for them and deflating, and keeps them locked in the cycle in which they actually really want to change.
Yes, and you hit on such a good point here that there is this process, first of all, that we need to go through, but how empowering once we do sit with some of the discomfort, learn to process these thoughts, with that awareness, there's power because when food has the power, that's a terrible feeling. I've had that feeling before and it doesn't feel very good. And then you don't feel very good about yourself. Like, what is wrong with me that I can't get control over this? And so the power, and this is what I love about intermittent fasting, you do feel a sense of that power because I know now I'm not lugging little Tupperware containers all over the city and eating cold white rice and tilapia. I feel like, okay, I can go out, Christmas shop, run my errands. We're in the season right now as we record this. And I don't feel like I need to find food, go forage for food. It's like, it's okay if I go 4 hours and come back home and then eat.
Well, and that's such a good point about that. And I agree with you 100%. The other day, went hours upon hours because I was running a bunch of errands and didn't even think about food. And it does back up to a couple of things. One being adapted to the intermittent fasting lifestyle, first and foremost, and having patience with yourself to adapt to that. But the piece that I stumbled along, I think in the early days of trying to figure this out on my own, was not properly fueling my body with the meal beforehand, right? And so one of the things that's made a huge difference is that if I am focused on the right macro composition, if my lunch is full of the right balance of high quality protein, fats, and veggies, I'm going to run a lot longer and smoother because I've adequately fueled and nourished my body first. And so, there's just so many things about this lifestyle that, again, I think the collaboration between us is just fun because we can really give women the tools they need to do this successfully and not maybe hit the roadblocks that they've hit in the past.
Yes. And this kind of leads us to our next point, which is
Yep.
we want to share with you that we are going to be running the IF45 intermittent fasting program together in January 2024. Beginning on January 8th will be our first class together. And as Tara mentioned, as Dr. Gunther mentioned, we bring in different skill sets. I have more of the fitness and exercise physiology, some of the fitness nutrition. Dr. Gunther has the nutrition, but then also the psychological piece. And we want to bring all of that together. So to kind of recap before we tell you a little bit about the program and how that's going to look, the three factors that we need to be concerned with as women to reduce belly fat is number one, that blood sugar regulation. Very important because we tend to have dysregulated blood sugar once we go through menopause. Then it is the insulin piece, which of course plays into that balanced blood glucose. We want insulin to be a hormone that is in balance. We want to be insulin sensitive and not insulin resistant. And then third, we do not need to fast in the same way as our husband, our brother, our male friend at work or whatever. As women and as midlife women and beyond, because I'm in my 60s, we need to be considering that we cannot fast in that same way. We cannot be doing those long extended fasts. Once in a while, it's okay, do a little extended fast, but we need to have that window to get those nutrients, like Dr. Gunther was talking about, those nutrients in, the protein in, the micronutrients, the macronutrients, your protein, your healthy fats, your carbohydrates. We can't be having the one meal a day or eating every other day. We need that window of time. And so this is where Dr. Gunther and I come in, because the way we put this program together is we're going to show you as women exactly how to avoid those pitfalls, how to incorporate intermittent fasting into your lifestyle. And this is a lifestyle. It's not a one and done. How to safely do that, how to successfully do that. And then Dr. Gunther is really going to have your back with the mindset piece of this, the thought work, what you need to be doing to be able to get past any of those limiting self-beliefs.
Yep, well said. I am so excited. This collaboration is going to be incredibly fun and really empowering, I hope, for the women that join us.
So we do have some special bonuses for you. Tell you a little bit about the program. It is 45 days, so roughly 6 weeks, give or take a little bit. We start January 8th. There is a big educational component, so there's going to be videos, live videos where we show you and answer any of your questions and show you exactly how to incorporate intermittent fasting as a lifestyle. You can expect to balance blood glucose levels, which for most of our clients, when this occurs, you're going to begin to see that belly fat diminish. You're going to be able to lose body fat, and contrary to what you may hear that intermittent fasting causes you to lose muscle, and that is incorrect. It's actually a great way to lose body fat, belly fat, retain that precious skeletal lean muscle when done correctly. That's the thing, when done correctly. But there's a couple of great bonuses. If you sign up by December 31st, if you're hearing this before December 31st, you will receive a complete workout program for the 6 weeks. So it is a strength training program that I've written to help you build that lean muscle. And the equipment needed is pretty minimal. It's dumbbells, barbells. If you have bands, great, but it's pretty basic. So you can do it at the gym or at home. And you also receive, it's a brand new macro challenge that I just wrote. It's actually a 28-day macro challenge for women. And this is where you will learn to balance your protein, your carbs, and your fats, which is what you need for success when you intermittent fast. So if you sign up by December 31st, you get those cool bonuses. Did you want to add anything to what they can expect inside the program, Tara?
I mean, it's going to be pretty exciting. So we, as you were saying, like we help individuals probably, skirt the typical windfalls or the typical falls that they have, and helping them do it safely and helping them understand their body as they're going through the process and having that support. The mindset piece that I'm pretty excited to offer is some additional material videos on how to identify the different types of hunger, how to really become increasingly aware of your mindset. And the tool that I use for mindset or thought management is something that is applicable to every area of your life. In fact, I use it daily in my sessions with clients. And so, really in this program, I think we want to give all the good things that we share with our clients, but not in an overwhelming manner, but in a way that is really promoting sustainable change and something they can come back to over and over again.
I love that. Sustainable and something they can come back to. Because it's important to note, I'm going through a health coaching certification right now for functional medicine. And part of that was we were looking at what individuals go through, not just women, but all people go through when they make changes. And sometimes they have to, they make the changes and they'll slip a little bit. But if they have something to refer back to, they can go back, re-implement. It's very normal to move in and out of implementation. So if this is a lifestyle, it's not one and done. It's something where you are constantly going back and using those tools that you've learned. And that is what Dr. Gunther and I really want to give you in this program, is the tools to be successful. And you may be asking, okay, is this for me? I get that question a lot. If you've tried intermittent fasting in the past and have felt like, I don't like the word fail, but it didn't quite work for you, this program is for you, because I am going to guess that perhaps you were under eating, maybe stretching that fasting window out too long, not fueling your body in your feeding window, over exercising. So many things can go wrong there. Perhaps it was those missing mindset pieces where the emotional eating came in and you were having some trouble with the hunger cues. and really sorting through what is true hunger and what is emotional hunger, which Dr. Gunther is going to walk you through exactly how to change those limiting self beliefs and how to use tools daily to get through this. And, perhaps you've never tried intermittent fasting and you would like to try it and you want to do it the right way. And that is the beauty of this program is we teach you the right way. And it's also it's important to note there is no hard and fast rules. When you say, Dr. Gunther, there's no rules about how, other than fueling your body properly, making sure you're not over fasting, under eating. Would you say it really is a flexible lifestyle?
Oh my goodness. I mean, that is something that I see challenging women all the time is they are so rule based and then so hard on themselves because they have put these strict rules in place that they feel like they're failing. And something I'm constantly saying is that my goal in working with these women is it's not that we're achieving 100% perfection. It's that we are 100% committed until we get to our goal. And it was back to your point, like it's this ebb and flow, right? But we just stay committed, which doesn't mean perfection.
Yes, committed, but not perfect. So
Mm-hmm.
really, I mean, you think back to the old 80-20 rule with food and 80% or even eating to 80% full. It's just these little mindful tools that we use day to day, things that we come back to, kind of like the macro tracking, keeping track of your protein, carbs, and fats. Do you have to track the rest of your life? No, but it's a tool and you will go in and out of using that tool. And it's a way to pull yourself back to your goals. And we will be running this program live. So you're going to have two coaches, the benefit of two coaches answering your questions in a private community. So you can feel like you can share openly, privately, and have that support that you need. We're going to be providing that live education. And once again, this is the way to eliminate that belly fat that is such a problem. Let's just get rid of it in 2024 with a sustainable approach. So I have the link up in the show notes. If you're having trouble finding that link, you can go to my website, carolcavino.com. There are all the programs listed. You just tap on the IF45 program and it will take you to that page telling you more about it, a little bit more about Dr. Gunther. I'm also going to link to the interview that we did together several months ago, I believe. It's been a while. I'll link to that so you can get to know Dr. Tara Gunther a little bit better. But we would love to have you inside the program. And as we begin to wrap up, you can contact me on Instagram is the best way. I'm on Facebook, but Instagram is the best way to contact me at Carol Cavino Fitness, or you can email me, carol@carolcavino.com. And Dr. Gunther, how would you like them to get a hold of you with questions, comments, any of the above?
Probably the easiest way is through my website. There is a contact form, which really just leads you to my email. But my website is www.drtaragunther.com, which is DR and then TARA Gunther GUNTHER.com. My email is very similar. It's tara@drtaragunther.com. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gunther. I know you have a client and need to hop off. I appreciate you coming on. I'm excited to collaborate with you and excited to see women go through this program together. So do check out the link in the show notes. Do reach out to myself and Dr. Gunther if you have any questions and if you wonder if the program is right for you, because we want it to be a good fit. And we will be very forthright and honest with you if we think it's a good fit or not a good fit. Feel free to reach out to us. And until we meet again, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.